Hello, I'm Jean Case, CEO of the Case Foundation, and it's my true delight to be here this morning with Todd Park. As many of you know, Todd is the Chief Technology Officer of the United States, which I think is a pretty cool title, Todd. Prior to that, Todd was CTO at HHS, the agency here in D.C. He co-founded Athena Health, one of the most innovative IT companies, and helped to co-found a company called Castlight as well, which was a web-based healthcare shopping service. So you're kind of known for your innovation, Todd. But as I was getting ready to talk to you this morning, you know, we have a large following on Twitter, watching what's going on here at this conference today, and I thought I would search around and see what the Twitter activity around you was like.
Okay.
And, you know, you can do these sort of formal bios, but one thing we thought was fun, looking last night, some of the folks said, wow, Todd Park is surprisingly energetic, eloquent, and personable for a CTO. He said, glad to see civil servants like Todd Park, inspired, geeky, smart, and a strong belief in opening up data and innovation for the government. So you clearly have a lot of people who followed your work, see the passion that you bring to it, et cetera. You know, at the conference this morning, Todd, which is all about prizes and challenges applied in the public sector to drive towards innovation, we covered the fact that, you know, today there's 190 prizes that have gone forward by 46 agencies. The Completes Act has been passed and enables agencies to spend up to $50 million on a prize. Challenge.gov was launched as a one-stop shopping for people who might want to jump in and play a role. So just a tremendous amount of traction and momentum over 2 years.
Yes.
Because you were at HHS, and HHS got an award this morning for their extreme innovation, talk a little bit about what you learned in the role of prizes and challenges while you were there and some of the things that really inspired you.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, it's interesting because the way that prizes and challenges really took off at HHS, it was not a top-down thing. What actually happened was there were a group of career civil servants that got wind of this. They said, this is really exciting. This is really game-changing. And so they then garnered support from leadership and then did a huge amount of work to actually build out the toolkit to enable this to be propagated across HHS, and they got a lot of people excited. And so it's very much a grassroots thing, which is, I think, very encouraging. And the reason they're so excited is because they see it as a new tool in government's toolkit. Sort of the same discovery that many folks in the private sector are actually making about prizes and challenges. It's a way to actually get breakthrough innovation to happen at a fraction of the cost, in a fraction of the time, and to get solutions that would never even have occurred to you before. So it's a way of establishing a goal without pre-picking the approach or team that's best equipped to solve that goal. It's a way of actually paying for results, principally. It's a way of actually massively broadening the scope of the people you bring into a given problem. So not just the usual suspects, but the unusual suspects.
Right.
One of the things the President talks a lot about is that expertise in today's society is widely dispersed. You want to cast a wide net to make sure you get that brilliant idea from that citizen, right, in a part of the country that may not be a usual suspect, but actually has that breakthrough idea that can really make something wonderful happen in a given problem. In fact, actually, the emerging academic literature on challenges shows that the folks who are most frequently winning are folks who are actually the unusual suspects.
Right, bringing new voices and new talent into the game.
That's right.
Tapping citizens out there to be part of solutions.
That's right. One of my favorite laws in my private sector and public sector life that I like to follow is called Joy's Law, which is named after Bill Joy, who co-founded Sun Microsystems, right? So Bill Joy once famously said, no matter who you are, you have to remember that most of the smartest people in the world work for somebody else, right? Yeah. And so the sooner you appreciate the truth of that law, the better off you'll be. Yeah. And prize challenge is a way of tapping into the power of Joy's Law and getting all the other smart people in the world, right, to kind of scrub into an issue that you've got and coming up with ideas and solutions that are just breathtakingly cool.
So I love your passion and I love the energy you bring to your work. You know, one of the things that's really set you apart is your passion around data. And for most of us who are not CTOs, we say, data? Really? How's that exciting? But you did like Datapalooza.
Datapalooza.
And so talk a little bit about the work there and how that's influenced the prizes and challenges work.
Oh, sure. So we've been engaged for actually about 2.5 years now in something called the Health Data Initiative. Something that I co-founded with an amazing team of folks at HHS in the Institute of Medicine about 2.5 years ago when I was at HHS. And it's something I continue to champion as US CTO. And the whole idea was to basically replicate in health what had happened previously with weather and GPS. So about 4 decades ago, the National Weather Service opened up its weather data for electronic download by anybody for free. That then provided raw material for all kinds of entrepreneurs and innovators to produce things like the Weather Channel, weather.com, iPhone weather apps, weather insurance.
Right.
In the 80s, the government actually ran this play again when it opened up access to the global positioning system, which then led to an enormous amount of innovation across the country and produced everything from Foursquare on your iPhone to supertanker navigation systems, everything in between.
Right.
So Health Day Initiative is running that open the data and embrace open innovation play again, but this time with vast reservoirs of health-related knowledge and information sitting in the vaults of HHS and other agencies. So data on the health of our communities, on the quality of our hospitals, the latest and greatest medical knowledge, and the National Library of Medicine, all kinds of data about drugs and insurance, et cetera, made machine readable, made available to the public, and basically marketed, publicized to the public and to entrepreneurs who can then actually take that data and turn it into magic, turn it into new products and services, features of products and services that improve health and healthcare, contribute to the growth of the economy, and create jobs. And the whole initiative was really constructed kind of as an Uber challenge, if you will. Because what we actually did was we did meetups with entrepreneurs. We did sessions to actually talk about the data that we were liberating or could liberate to get their feedback, made the data available, did all kinds of outreach. But then the kind of structure we put on the whole thing was we said, look, so every year we're going to do a health data palooza. And basically what this is, because it was kind of a foreign idea at the time, is we're going to challenge American entrepreneurs to come to this data palooza with the best products and services they've built using this open data that can help patients, that can help doctors, help communities improve healthcare, and that have sustainable business models and can therefore be delivered to actual people and create jobs and grow the economy. I remember actually the first time we did this was when we first gathered a group of entrepreneurs together to show them data that we wanted to make available or we were prepared to make available and said, what could you do with it? They brainstormed a bunch of ideas that they could do with it. And then we actually said, okay, in 90 days, the Institute of Medicine and Secretary Sebelius are going to host a data palooza. Whichever one of you can build one of these ideas that you actually just brainstormed, we'll make you famous. And they showed up 90 days later with about 20 new apps or services or upgrade apps or services that leverage the data to help people find the right healthcare provider, help improve health in all kinds of ways. And then we've actually made that a tradition now. And we just actually last week held our third annual Health Data Palooza. It's grown a little bit since then. There were 1,600 people that came together in the Washington Convention Center in a conference sponsored by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Institute of Medicine, and about 20 other partners. 242 companies and nonprofits competed in an American Idol style process for the right to present their open data powered product or service.
Yeah.
And the judges were patients and doctors and nurses and community leaders. And what they showcased was just amazing. Services that help you actually assess your symptoms and find the right healthcare provider and book an appointment. Applications that help you find the right clinical trial that could save your life, or that help doctors and nurses have the right information at the right time to actually take the right care of you, or that help mayors assess kind of the situation in their community and what they can do to actually help improve health and health can make better policy decisions.
That's awesome. But when you talk about civil servants, this sort of grassroots effort, they had ideas, they took it forward, they really challenged the leadership. You talk about unleashing data. A lot of those things are taking risks. It's not what we think about when we think about the public sector and specifically federal agencies. So what has happened? How do you see us getting more of that going forward, and how are things changing so we see more of a willingness to take risks and try new things to innovate? Yeah,
well, so I spent most of my life, professional life, as a private sector entrepreneur, and had a fantastic time. And what I'll tell you, based on the last 3 years now I've spent in the federal government, is that many of the most talented, natural-born entrepreneurs I've ever met work for the United States federal government. They are there, right?
Oh, that's great to hear.
And actually I had this tactic that I began to learn to use when I joined the federal government, because I was asked to join HHS and now serve at the White House in a tech entrepreneur in residence role, where my job is to basically cook up and lead the execution at high speed of a portfolio of projects that can help unleash the power of data and tech to address our national priorities. And so I learned that the right tactic, I learned this very rapidly, is the following. Whenever you have an idea, go find the 3 people in government who already had the idea a long time ago, because they're there.
Great.
And find them and recruit them into a virtual startup. It's not a company, obviously, but think of it as kind of a startup project. And say, I'll basically be air cover for you. I'll be your virtual CEO, block down field for you. I'll mow your lawns, bake cookies, whatever it takes, right? But basically, I'm here to help you do what you've always wanted to do, right? And then just giving them the opportunity, giving them the air cover is really the key. because then they'll make things happen at unbelievable speed.
Yeah.
Unbelievable speed. I mean, one of the things actually I talk about is that, the thing that to me differentiates the best entrepreneurs from the average ones, this is what I noticed empirically based on data in the private sector, is that the best entrepreneurs aren't in it for the stock options, they're not in it for the fame, they're in it because they can't bear the idea of the world not having what they're building.
Yeah,
They're
so
just
on
obsessed,
that point, I have
right?
a question
There's
for
a lot
you.
of folks like that in the government.
And I have a question for you on that. If we look at, and then we're going to go to a Twitter question after this. If we look at prizes and challenges, what role really does money make versus just almost the thrill of the hunt or going after the challenge? And do you see it as we need a mix of things, or how do you see those two things playing out in this work?
So I think it's extremely clear that money is not the primary driver, right? And so people expend vastly more energy building their solutions than the prize money in many, many cases.
Right.
I mean, they're really in it because they get really excited about the problem. They want to help, and they see this as a way of building a solution and then getting recognition for that, which they can then turn into a company or something that can actually scale. I will say that actually what we have found is that money does help because I think it actually provides folks with essentially the notion that some portion of their cost could actually be recovered, or that it could potentially be seed funding to help them actually get a leg up into turning this into a company.
Right, to get them started, or as the...
That's right, that's right. Particularly for efforts that actually require significantly more calories to be expended. But yeah, it's very, very clear that it's actually not the money that's the motivator. It's actually the chance to make a difference, it's the chance to get recognition, and the chance to use that recognition and the solution that you built as a ticket into building a company, building a new program, building something really exciting that can scale. Interesting.
So Jenna, I hear we have a Twitter question.
We do. The question is, why do you think prizes are more effective at finding solutions in the public sector than other tools and tactics?
I think that they're actually more effective in certain situations, but they're not necessarily a one-size-fits-all solution. So I think the folks that I've talked to who are savviest about the uses of prizes and challenges don't think of it as a hammer that you use for every single nail, right? There's a role for grants, there's a role for contracts, there's a role for challenge competitions. I think the place where challenge competitions seem to be the best fit is places where you really have a pretty clearly defined problem, but you have really no idea how best to solve it, right? So it's hard to write a specification for a solution because you don't really even know what the solution is, or you suspect that the solution that's in your head isn't the one that's actually optimal. And so you really want to cast a broad net and get as many smart people as possible who care, including people who are unusual suspects, not just usual ones, to scrub in on a given problem. So I think those are the situations where I think challenges are the best fit.
Did we have one more?
We do. How do you keep prizes from becoming a fad? So that kind of follows up on your note about them not being the hammer to every nail. How do we keep it from being a fad?
Well, I think that the way to think about prizes and challenges, the way to think about challenge competitions is that it's a tool, right? And tools are best used in the context of a broader innovation strategy. And so, for example, the Health Data Initiative has made extensive use of prizes and challenges, challenges issued by the federal government, and actually challenges mostly issued by foundations and private sector companies that want to motivate action using public data sets that can advance missions that they care about. But prizes and challenges in that context are used to help market particular missions, make broadly known particular data sets as resources, and get people engaged in the ecosystem. And there is increasingly a set of clear pathways for the winners to follow, right? There are incubators that want to know who wins these challenges because they would like to fund them, right? There are venture capitalists that are interested in seeing what pops out of the incubators, right? There are markets that are really interested in seeing what pops out of all this innovation activity as ready customers. And so I think that it's important to think about challenges not as one-off kind of shots in the dark, but rather as ingredients that are very powerful that you can mix into compounds, broader innovation strategies that can deliver tremendous results to the American people.
So one of the things we focus on a lot in our work in philanthropy is this idea of leverage and cross-sector participation. We heard this morning about an airplane that was built to go 200 miles on a half a gallon of gas. And that as part of that, there was a 4-to-1. For every $1 the government invested, there were 4 private sector dollars that went into that research and that sort of testing. Talk a little bit about the business case and the leverage of how government dollars can go further and private sector dollars can go further by participating in some of these things together.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so one emerging feature of challenges actually that are being executed by both the public and private sector is that the total amount of investment that's being made by the private sector, right, in these challenges is vastly, vastly, vastly greater than the prize money. And again, that's because the prize money really isn't the objective, right? It's actually the chance to make a difference, the chance to build something really innovative in a kind of very high octane, high profile moment, and the chance to then take that thing that you built with your team and turn it into a business, turn it into something bigger, turn it into something that can actually scale. And so we've seen that over and over again, and that's actually something that's, again, happening both in government challenges and private sector challenges. And it's just really, really, really exciting.
Great, great.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the future. How do you see the future? I mean, we've talked a lot about these challenges that exist on challenges.gov, and I want to say to our Twitter audience and anyone watching online, check out challenges.gov. There's a lot of exciting ways you can jump in and possibly participate in some of this really exciting work we're talking about. But what do you see in the future? We talked about the traction in the last 2 years. Where do we go from here?
I think that I mean, based on what I'm actually seeing, actually across both the public and private sector, I think that challenges within a few years will actually be a pretty routine thing. People will think it is actually completely normal. I mean, it's completely routine, and of course you would use challenges as a key tool in your toolkit. So in the government, we actually talk a lot about the fact that, we'd like to get to the point that when any government program owner, any government problem solver is beginning to think about how to solve a problem, they'll reflexively think not just grant or contract, but they'll also think on an equal level challenge competitions. Not that challenge competitions are the best for every situation, but that they'll think of that as the third leg of the stool of what they could actually bring to bear. And I think actually, interestingly, I think we're moving toward that future incredibly rapidly. And again, I go back to the fact that HHS, right? It wasn't a top-down initiative.
Right, exactly.
It was a bottoms-up, let's do this, let's embrace it. Very entrepreneurial, which is just fantastic. And that's how you know it's really going to stick and go deep.
Right, but we're going to need great talent going forward in our public sector, and you're a sector jumper. You came out of the private sector and you've gone into government. We need more talent. It's hard to find talent like you, Todd, but there are a lot of great private sector talents out there. What would you say to the private sector folks who are part of this conversation today to encourage them to maybe consider a public sector role? Oh,
I would say that as much fun as I had as a private sector entrepreneur, at the most amazing 3 years of my life, the most entrepreneurial 3 years of my life, have been the last 3 years working for the U.S. government. And that is principally because I've had the pleasure of meeting and then working very closely with amazing natural-born innovators and entrepreneurs across the U.S. government who are capable of and are doing amazing things if you just give them the air cover and give them the vehicles and give them the chance. And so I would say that public service is something that really every private sector entrepreneur should consider doing at some point. We've actually just launched an opportunity for folks to do that. We announced a couple weeks ago something called the Presidential Innovation Fellows Program. Basically, it's a program that aims to bring together amazing citizen innovators with amazing government innovators to work on small, agile teams, working in lean startup mode on 5 game-changing projects with the aim of delivering initial results within 6 months. We actually have 15 spots open across the 5 projects. In the first 24 hours after we announced it, 600 people registered to apply for the 15 spots. And we were asking for something totally unreasonable. We were saying, drop everything, right? Come to DC in 6 weeks to work 6 months in the DC heat, like a barking, rabid dog, right? And leave the rest of your life behind, right? And 600 people said, absolutely, right?
There.
Now actually over 1,500 people have registered to apply. And actually on top of that, we said, well, if you can't drop everything and come to DC to help, if you're interested in one of these projects, sign up to follow it and contribute to it from wherever you are. And over 2,300 additional people in the last 2 weeks have said, sign me up to follow and help this project in some way. And so whoever thought that civic mindedness was dead, right? It's not dead. Awesome. People want to serve. And the people who are throwing their hat in the ring are amazing people. So it's very heartening.
Well, Todd, you inspire us, and I want to thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for the innovation that you've brought to your office and across the agencies. And I know there's an audience in the other room waiting to hear from you. You have to go speak, but thanks so much for the time.
Thank you so much.
It's been great.
Thank you.
And thanks to our audience.